if you don't have that element in there specific to POs, you don't ever have you don't ever have real-time data for what's going on. And the data is where the health or the sickness is, in my opinion. And so when you make the statement that this could work, well, sure, it could work, but what are we seeing?
So is there any business where it would work? No. Every business out there has got a PO system or an equivalent thereof. They can call it they can call it Meridian, they can call it whatever they want to call it.
Right.
But it's a PO, it's a purchase order system.
Right. You are listening to Not on the Payroll right here at notonthepayroll.com. You can check us out at Facebook, check us out at YouTube, check us out at Rumble. You can also check out our content at Twitter. We've got a great interview for you today, specifically sitting down with the newly elected, I say newly elected, it's been a few months now, but newly elected commissioner down here at Precinct 4, Leonard Powell. I really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to kind of sit down with us and kind of give us a little bit of some updates and maybe field a few thoughts for us. And but yeah, we really appreciate you sitting down with us.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. So, of course, everybody is on some level, freaking out about where property taxes, appraisals, and all that stuff's at. And how do you see this thing? Because there's it seems like a lot of finger pointing, and a lot of it goes back to the county, or a lot of it goes back to different entities within the county. Anyway, specific to why people's taxes are going up, why we're kind of sitting. Me myself, I know mine doubled, and we haven't done that much work. I mean, I think we've done a lot of work, but at the same time, if you drive by my house, it looks basically the same. And so, but the property value is double almost. And so, how are you guys fielding those types of issues on y'all's end as commissioners?
Well, so I appreciate the opportunity to answer that question. So that's a question that I've got from family members.
Sure.
Near and dear friends, and I think it's a valid question, and it's one that, as a commissioner, I need to answer. So, first of all, let's talk a little bit when you said your taxes doubled, what have you. Well, you said your taxes went up, and then your appraisal value doubled, So, I'm going to try to make this as simple as I can, but be very, very accurate in the summation of how it works. So when the appraisal value goes up on a home, that doesn't mean your property tax is going to go up any. The taxes you pay, okay?
Right.
So let's just take this for an example.
Okay.
On a homestead exemption. Well, first of all, let me back up and talk about how the appraisal value works. So the appraisal office is operated out of the comptroller, the state of Texas. The chief appraisal, Margie Herring, she works for the state comptroller. She has funding provided to her by the county and the school districts and those things, but she answers to no one in the county. She's an independent office. And her office is charged with going out and looking at these 2,400 different properties and saying, how much are they worth?
Sure.
And the state comes in with very strict guidelines. They train their people on how to appraise property or not. Now, we can all argue whether they're doing a good job of that or not. But at the end of this process, the state comes in and says, we're going to pick 300 properties that you appraise this year, and you've got to be within 5% of that value in your appraisal.
Okay.
Or we're going to take money from the school districts.
Okay.
Because the state gives money to the school districts. So the way the state looks at it is, hey, we're giving money to the school districts. We want to make sure you're collecting your fair share of taxes and you're not undervaluing property.
Okay.
There's a lot of dissension around, property or a house in Newton County is not as an apples to apples, if you took the house and just took the home and set it in Lumberton, it would appraise for a lot higher value. But the home appraises per the state's guidelines. Okay, so you've got Margie Herring's office saying these are the values of the homes in Newton County.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, totally independent of the commissioner's court and the judge.
Okay.
She's working with the state. She provides those values to the court, to the tax assessor collector. But in the budgeting process, now remember, she sets the value. She doesn't set how much taxes you pay.
Right.
In the budgeting process, the commissioner's court says, okay, if they say we need $10 to operate this county. Next year we got to have $10 to operate the county. This year the tax rate was 0.71992, I think. So it's 72 cents per $100 of value.
Okay.
Okay, so if you had a $10,000 home, it would be a $72 tax, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when the commissioner's court comes in, they look at a lot of things, but they look at the overall value of the property, and then they look at it at a percentage of taxing on per $100 value. So there's this thing called no new revenue.
Right.
So if it took $10 to operate the county last year,
mm-hmm.
and the commissioner's court comes in and says, you know, we did a good job last year operating the county, and $10 is what we need again this year, but the appraisal values went up. Well, and the tax rate per $100 of value was 0.72.
Mm-hmm.
The commissioner's court can say, we're going to lower that that tax rate to still get our $10. Now, if we leave it at 0.72 and all the appraisals go up, well, then we may get $12,
right.
But we only need 10 to operate the county. The catch-22 in that is this: the question is the values going up countywide? Because if they go up here and they go up there and they go up over there, well, unless they go up all the way across the board, then the tax base isn't going to change. Yeah, a few properties went up in value, but you still need that 0.72 to operate your county, because even though those values went up, excuse me, you still have $10 to operate your county, or $10.20, whatever it may be.
Right.
But holistically, the appraisal office values property. The commissioner's court, with the help of the tax office and the auditor and the other folks within the county, says we need this much money to operate our county, and they set the tax rate.
Okay.
Now, the tax rate is set by commissioner's court, but there's guidelines around that. They can increase that tax rate, but there's thresholds. If they go up above a certain threshold, they have to have voter approval.
Right.
So they can adjust it slightly as things need to be done. And, inflation drives everything, right?
Sure.
So a set of tires here, whatever it may be, the sheriff's department, the tax, things increase. So it may be small increases, just like in every household. Every year things typically go up.
Sure.
But it's not going to be a drastic increase in a tax rate without voter approval. Now, going back to those appraisal values, when we start budget workshops, we'll be handed a piece of paper and they'll say, based on these appraisals at this tax rate, this would be the tax levy brought in.
Okay. So basically, it kind of gives you guys a sneak peek as to the appraisals versus that 0.7 or whatever that number was. And so that tells you, okay, we got $10 last year to run the county, but it looks like we're going to get 14 or 15 maybe.
If everyone's appraisals went up.
Okay.
So if it's hit and miss,
Right.
If John and Bill's appraisals went up, but 80% of the other people didn't,
Right.
John and Bill ain't gonna be happy because they're gonna be paying more taxes.
Right.
But as an average, everybody will be paying the same with no new revenue type setup.
Is that what Commissioner's Court is looking to push forward with the no new revenue?
So I can't speak for the other commissioners.
Okay.
And I think we're premature. You know, we're 6 months into the year.
Sure.
There's been some unexpected costs that are lingering. You know, we haven't got those bills or what they call receivables. I call them a bill at my house, an invoice. We haven't gotten those in the mail yet, but we've been told they're coming. So, you know, where are we going to be? You know, where are we going to be toward the end of the year? What's about to start happening in the next 30 days or so, Judge Cochran will call for budget workshops.
Okay.
In those budget workshops, you'll have a large group of people, and most of those people, I attended them last year as you know, after being elected during the primary, and I attended them to try to understand the process and learn. What I saw was a courtroom full of people employed by the county.
Okay.
No one else.
Okay, so the budget workshops are open to the public?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So what I recommend is, you know, all workshops that Commissioners Court holds are open to the county, by the way, and all public meetings at the Commissioners Court. There's an Open Meetings Act that we can't meet without inviting the county. When we go into a meeting, we can go into closed sessions to discuss certain things, litigation, personnel issues, but everything, this is all their business.
Right.
So we got to be transparent, open in front of them. We're meeting on this date, this time. Come sit in, and in the workshops, there's an avenue to where people can speak in certain things. But I would go back on point here. When we start holding those workshops, it would be very prudent for the residents of Newton County to come to those workshops. And a lot of people say, well, yeah, but you have them when we're working. Okay, that does happen. It's very hard to have them during the off hours because we all have a job to do as well. So what I would say is try to find someone to come and sit in and see what's going on in your government. You know, with the last year's budget, you know, that tax levy, it brought in around $8 million at that 0.719. So just say 0.72. So it brought in around $8 million. Well, the way the county works, and this is something that's really difficult for people to understand, and it was for me as well. So the four founders of this county government said, and this is statewide, they said, hey, look, when you get your taxes in, 15% of that goes to road and bridge. In other words, they said 15% of it is going to go into infrastructure. In case you blow the rest of it, the people that live here are going to have road and bridges to be able to move around and get to and from work. So 15% of that $8 million goes to the four commissioners. It's split up evenly because every commissioner's got their own challenges. Whether it's miles of road or drainage or whatever it may be, everyone has challenges. So the commissioners got a little bit over $500,000 to operate off of this year. So that money, by law, cannot be used for anything other than road and bridge maintenance and the infrastructure around those road and bridges. And that includes like the tools the men need to work on the road and bridges, the staff, the payroll of those folks. So that's kind of how they set up. Now you take the rest of that money and you say, this is what we operate off of. So right now, let me back up. About 4.7 months into the year, we were averaging on a monthly, I'm sorry about that. We were averaging on a monthly note, we was averaging around $600,000 for bills for the county out of the general fund.
Okay.
Not the road and bridge fund, not what the commissioners are working on, but the general fund, what pays the sheriff's department and pays everything else.
So so basically when you guys use the phrase general fund, that's everything that's not associated with that 15%.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
So around $600,000. So if you do the math on that, that's around $7 million a year to operate the county.
Okay.
That's your budget. That's all the money there is.
Right.
So at the end of that, you know, you don't have a lot of money. And of that $600,000 a month to operate this county, $400,000 of that's payroll. Now that's payroll for everyone in the county with the exception of the commissioners' people. The commissioners' workers, people that work for the commission on road and bridge, their pay comes out of that 15%. So approximately $380,000 to $400,000 is spent on payroll a month out of the general fund. So by the time you put a few bills on that, man, you've eat up all the tax levy coming in. So back to your original question, is that where the commissioners are going to be? Are they going to be at a no new revenue tax rate? I think what first thing we got to do is decide what services we need to offer.
Sure.
And then, are those services truly required?
Yeah, because I think it is, to act like the county is healthy would be complete lunacy and I'm just talking about just from the information we know. This is before forensic audits and things like that come into play to find out how deep this rabbit hole goes. Because back during the election time of the judges facing off or Weeks and Cochran going at it, there was a lot of rumor mill about what's happening with the money, and now it almost seems like, I think whenever I talked to Judge Cochran here a week or so ago, he made the statement that the county was broke in September 2022, and if it wasn't for the ARPA funds, they was out of cash.
And that's an undeniable fact. We can talk about he said, she said, but
right.
Last year the county run out of money toward the end of the year and used the ARPA fund to make payroll. Now, one of the things that really challenges the county, and I think when you interview Judge Cochran, you ask him what his monthly expenditures were.
Sure.
And he said, I'm working with the auditor to try to understand that. He knew exactly what he was averaging on spending a month, but what the work is and where the real challenge is Newton County doesn't have a PO system. For the folks out there that don't know what a PO system is, maybe you haven't lived in that world, it's a purchase order. So the way Newton County is set up, our auditor is sitting over there waiting for people to bring her a requisition. Here's 10 requisitions. I spent $100,000 last month. Now, true enough, they should be in their budget, right? If they're spending outside of their budget. Sometimes those things happen, but when they say, we're trying to get a better grip on that, or we're trying to understand that, it's really difficult when you have no purchase order system. You're waiting until after the fact to find out how much money you have.
No, okay. So that is, to me, probably the most disturbing part of the whole conversation right there. Because I come from purchase order world. I come from that background. I've been in oil and gas for the last decade. And guess who took care of all the POs? This guy. And so to break that down in a real basic form, ladies and gentlemen, because some people don't know PO terminology and requisition terminology, this would be the equivalent of you getting your paycheck and not balancing your checkbook all year long. And then, is that kind of what you're? Because basically, if you think about it, say a household makes $50,000. Okay, they make $50,000. Well, all that money don't come in one lump sum,
right?
But the way these budgets kind of allocate, they don't trickle this money out.
Right.
This money is budgeted.
Exactly.
So, each one of these precincts. So there is no active PO system currently in Newton County.
That is correct. Now remember, when we talk budgets and we talk general fund and we talk about the county being in poor economic condition, that is totally outside of the commissioners. The commissioners as a whole are not broke. They have money in their budgets. And again, our founding forefathers said we've got to maintain the infrastructure of roads and bridges.
So you at least have the 15%.
You got the 15%. You get that every year. No one can touch it by law. And we can't say, hey, I've got some extra money, let me give it back to the county. The law says no. I can't help what's going on there. You're going to spend that on road and bridges. Now, when we talk, the best way I explain the PO system to people, and I explained it to my wife, and I think this is a great analogy. So when my children were young, 15, 16, 17, if we all four would have had a checkbook coming out of the same account, okay, and no carbon copies on any of the checks,
no,
And we're going to go ahead and say my wife's got to balance it at the end of the month because I surely wouldn't want to, right?
Right.
So no carbon copies. And at the end of the month, everybody's been writing down how much you've been spending. Everybody brings my wife the checkbook bill. Here you go. Balance the checkbook. That's what we have in the county, in the general fund. Now, everybody has a budget, and they should operate within that budget, right?
Okay.
But when is that budget running up against the wall? Without a purchase order system, the auditor is sitting there, and you walk in and say, I need to know how much cash is in the bank. Well, you can go to the treasurer. She can go, we got $10 in the bank. Just throwing numbers out there. Well, the auditor, you go to her, and she's going to say, yeah, we don't have $10 in the bank. We got about $6. She may see 10, but she's on the bill side of it, and she's thinking, I know this is coming out this month.
Right.
So, not to say the treasurer doesn't know that, but I'm talking about real time.
It's just the mechanics of how the system works.
Yeah, it's exactly. But the treasurer's in there handling the money, paying people through the paychecks, what have you, and the auditor is getting the requisitions come in. She's paying the invoices to the vendors.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So when this money in the general fund is, okay, so we're basically saying this is how the whole system works. We're saying this is how the 15% works, and this is how the general fund works. There is no, because to me, to be as candid as possible, this is the fundamental breakdown in the economic situation for Newton County. This is it, because you're not seeing, if you've got $500,000 in the bank, and you've got people like you're talking about with your kids writing these checks out, you have no way of knowing. See, in the oil and gas world, if you send those kids out you wouldn't send those kids out, first of all, with a checkbook. All right? In the oil field. Okay? And I ain't saying Newton County got to run like the oil field, but there's a reason the oil field, outside of some of the corruption stuff, the oil field's been around for so long, is because of these systems. But to me, it's just like this Kasich scenario with the company I used to work for. I would manage about $5 million, okay, from a PO type of structure. Basically, what would happen is there's 3 or 4 men who worked out in the field. They would call me up for a PO. I would say, okay, here's your PO number. That PO number had to be on the invoice that was when they say they went down to go buy a tractor or a tractor part or something along those lines. That PO number was then associated with that amount on that invoice. They would have to bring that ticket back to me. I'd see the tractor roll by, and I said, where's my invoice?
Right. Yeah.
And then it goes into a process where now we can watch the real-time numbers on the front end instead of having to play catch-up on the back end. I actually stepped in for a few men who played that catch-up game on the back end. It is a nightmare. There's no way to know how much money you got anywhere because you could be sitting here for 6 months. We were having jobs completed well over 12 months, and we would still have invoice coming in off of that project. There was just no way to manage it on the front end.
So one of the things that happened in Precinct 4 at the end of 2022, it happens in every office when that elected official leaves, that they did a closeout audit. They come down, the auditor did it, went through everything, how much, and they come back and then I went up in January. This is what you have. This is what you have in cash funds. Up until about a month ago, I was still getting invoices from 2022. Now, you can say, well, that's not a very good audit, but the way our system is set up, if I pick up the phone and I call, I won't name names, but if I call my materials provider and I say, and let's just say it's September, I say, hey, I need 200 tons of 1-inch rock.
Right.
And they say, okay, it's on its way, and I hang up the phone.
Right.
You know what?
Yeah.
Who's going to know about it?
Nobody.
But if we had a PO system where if I said, hey, I need a PO number. I'm about to order 200 tons. Yeah, I'm going to take it out of account 34, line item such and such. Can you flag that account? Give me a PO number.
Yeah.
I write that PO number down. I call and say, hey, I need 200 tons. Here's my PO number. Then when the audit's done at the end of the year,
there's a PO number associated with that money.
that account is already flagged.
100%.
It's there.
So the auditor can actually only audit what's there.
That's it.
She can't audit what's not there. What's in oblivion. And so to me, it kind of goes back to this, because even on my end, oil field related, at the end of every project that we were on, I would have to go through my vendor list that I knew I'd cut POs for and put my foot on their throat to get my invoice sent to me on email. That because when we go to audit time of that project, you can only audit what's there.
Right.
And like you're talking about, you're still getting invoices from 2022.
Now back to your question of, is that in every office and what have you? So I want to make sure, I've got a bunch of friends and elected officials in Newton County going, that ain't true, I'll track my money. So, hey, this is every account I've got.
Mm-hmm.
We update it every Tuesday morning. And when we buy something, we charge it against these accounts. I have a monthly average and I have a real time number on this. Anytime I go in there, I can pull up on this computer and say, hey, I need to know how much money we got in road materials. It's real. Now the auditor, she don't have a clue because I haven't turned any requisitions in. I may have, 25 requisitions for $50,000, because they're not a $50,000 at once type.
Right.
So yeah, the auditor is at a very big disadvantage when you say, give me a real number. How much money we got right now?
Because it's like pull the needle out of the hay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy because even with initially when I started out in PO systems, specifically with the company I was with, these guys had a $10,000 threshold. Anything over $10,000 needed a PO, and then they quickly realized anything over $1,000.
That's exactly what you need. Yeah, exactly.
And so you can see how years of this type of, I won't call it neglect, but maybe some level of uneducatedness or ignorance about the value of a PO system. Years of this, because if they don't have it in 2023, they sure as hell didn't have it in 2016.
Yeah.
And so to me, that really kind of draws that's a problem that has to be dealt with. And I don't know, where do you start?
So I asked that question when I first came in, and they said, well, we had a system, Net Data has a system, and we had a system before, and I just filled out this PO when I made an order, and they grabbed a book, and it was, but it's not hey, I need a PO and I'm pulling it out of this account. That's no different than a requisition. It's just another piece of paper. It's not automated. So that's a thing. But I want to get back to this.
Okay.
If you go to, let's just say, let's use the sheriff. If you go to the sheriff and maybe the tax assessor and say, how much money do you have in your budget right now? Mm-hmm. I'm confident they both can sit down and pull up an Excel spreadsheet and say, this is how much money I got right now.
Right.
And be accurate.
Right.
But again, they're the only ones that are absolutely privy to that information at that time. Now, can that work? I guess if it can work, but the downside of that is when you get into those situations where you have unexpected expenditures coming up,
sure,
and the judge and the court says, hey, we didn't expect this $250,000, we didn't expect this money. We need to look at where we can pull money from.
Yeah.
Who's got what? Well, you look out there and you see all this land of lush, money everywhere, but the auditor's
that's
saying,
not a real read.
Yeah, who knows what's in that account? Yeah. We'll know when all the recs are in.
Next year. It's kind of crazy to me because this makes complete sense on my take. It makes complete sense how the county, because if you think about this, And I know you have, I know you have. But if you really think about this just in a very basic way, this is the reason people end up a lot of times impoverished, because they don't know how to manage their money. They don't know how to manage. I mean, I have a great financial assistant at my home. Okay? Actually, she should be the CFO. I'll be more the assistant when she calls me.
Right.
But if you don't have that element in there specific to POs, you don't ever have a real time. You don't ever have real time data for what's going on, and the data is where the health or the sickness is, in my opinion. And so when you make the statement that this could work, well, sure, it could work, but what are we seeing?
So is there any business where it would work? No. Every business out there has got a PO system or an equivalent thereof. They can call it some other, they can call it Meridian, they can call it whatever they want to call it.
Right.
But it's a PO, it's a purchase order system.
Right.
To where they track their dollars and cents in real time.
Absolutely.
It's just like this. How many households now work with a checkbook and a carbon copy versus a debit card? They work with a debit card because they want an instantaneous, when I do this, I know exactly how much I got in the
Yes.
account.
Yes.
So that's where the county needs to move to. But kind of, and I don't want to take us too far there, but you know, I want to make sure, going back to the appraisals, because
Right.
I know when we talked this weekend about, you know, what's a good subject matter, the appraisals, I want to share this with the people in Precinct 4 because they have a lot of questions. But I also want to share it countywide because I think it's due diligence. You know, your appraisal value in itself does not set the amount of taxes you're going to pay.
Right.
Now, if your appraisal doubles on a piece of property that is not homestead, even if we drop that tax rate, you're going to pay more money than you did last year, right?
Right.
So I'm not being foolish there, but on a homestead, you can only increase 5%. Now you can increase, if they go to 100,000, you're going to go 5% every year until they get that $50,000 value up to 100,000.
Sure.
So, but I wanted to get that.
No, I mean, I think that's very relevant on that end. You know, so take me back to when you went to, because I want to kind of take away some of the maybe fear, trepidation that people have about coming to these county meetings.
Okay.
So when you went last year to the budget workshop meeting, okay, once again, everybody in the county is more than welcome to show up at those, and they can probably find that online, the county's website and all that.
They can, and on Precinct 4 information page, when the judge starts scheduling those, the court starts scheduling, we start having, they will be on that page. Right. You know, and I'm sure the judge will share them on his page as well. You know, you're welcome to attend. Now, one of the things that I think is important for the public to know is critically important. When you get your tax appraisals, when you get your property appraisals, we need to separate, you know, property appraisals and tax rates, two different animals. When you get your property appraisals in,
right,
you got 30 days to protest that appraisal.
Right.
There's a board that's made up to hear those protests that's got countywide residents in that. And you go into the tax appraisal office, to the appraisal office, and you go in and you file a protest, and you'll be heard. That was one thing that I wanted to touch on today. But for the largest majority of people that I know, all of their property's homestead exempt. So if you get a huge jump, just take comfort in the fact that your property can't be taxed above that 5%.
They're going to slower jump you.
They're gonna get you there, right?
Yeah. They're going to get you there.
But it goes back to this.
Right.
If everyone in the county gets a higher value, and the court says we don't need more money than we needed last year, we'll adopt a no new revenue budget, and we'll lower that tax rate from 0.7119 to 0.69.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we're going to do that, but I'm just saying that's an option that the court has. The court may sit down and say, hey, we've been struggling for the last 3 years to make ends meet. We need to go up more.
But what's interesting is without a PO system, who knows?
Well, you're talking to a guy, I mean, you've been in industry, and listen, you know, In precinct 4, I know precinct 4. I'm sure it's the same way in other precincts, but I'm talking about what I know. I think that's what we should all do. So in precinct 4, there's CPAs that live in precinct 4. There's bankers.
Right.
There are people that have worked from the very bottom to the very top of large construction companies. There's also people that work for large refineries. There's people in the medical field. And then there's people that are just really good stewards of their money.
Right.
We want to hear from those people. I don't think there's any, I know there's not a commissioner in this county and a county judge that don't welcome feedback.
Right.
You know, and at the end of all that, and at the end of those budget workshops,
Yeah.
I want people to know for me,
Right.
for Leonard Powell, I'm going to listen to everything my constituents say. And I'm going to listen to people all throughout the county. And then I'm going to make a decision with my head. I'm going to allow my heart to hear, but I'm going to make a decision with my head.
Right.
I'm going to do what's best for Newton County. I'm not going to be soft when it comes time to spending your tax dollars. And that's where residents need to set that expectation of, hey, it doesn't matter who's in the room.
Right.
Let's spend our tax dollars wisely.
Right.
And I'm not casting stones at anybody. I'm just saying going forward, we really have to knuckle down and figure out. For the last couple of years, I heard one commissioner say, for the last 2 years, we've heard the same thing. We're $2 million short.
Yeah.
So if we're $2 million short, we may need to cut our expenses by $2 million, right?
Sure.
We need to figure out where that's at. What's in that budget that can be cut?
Right.
Again, it goes back to required versus desired.
Sure.
You know?
And the thing is, just because we're in a situation right now where we're financially out of shape, you know, because I think without a PO system, that's the easy estimation, is that we're out of shape on some level. My thought process is, when you went to the workshop, how many other citizens in Newton County that did not receive a paycheck from the county, how many of those folks was at that meeting?
Maybe 4.
That's a bigger problem.
That's
as big of a problem.
That's a huge problem. And you got to remember, and I'm not bashing the people that work for the
Sure.
county,
Right.
because I'm going to tell you flat out, this is an accurate statement. There's no one that works for Newton County that's paid enough money for the job they do.
Right.
Now, I knew exactly how much this job paid when I ran for it.
Right.
And everybody knows exactly how much your job pays when they get hired on. So I'm not saying we're abusing it, but what I'm saying is when you're sitting at commissioner's court,
Yeah.
and you're looking out and it's all the people that work for the county, or a large majority of them, the
Yeah.
commissioners guys can't go there on the road bridge, but people that are around the courthouse, they're there. They're interested.
Right.
It's their livelihood.
That's right.
And that's all you see.
Yeah.
That's all I seen last year. I hope this year, when I get there, there's some people that are on their long break
Yeah.
that can go. All right, and there's some folks that are retired that can go. And they
Sure.
step in and they say, hey, I'd like to know a little bit more about county government. Where's our money being spent? Because I think we got a court that's going to talk to them and listen to them and work with them on those things.
So you're basically saying they don't need to be scared. They need to set aside the time.
No, I think they need to be very scared.
Okay.
You need to be scared to set your rump at home and not paying attention to what's going on with your tax dollars.
Sure.
You need to get in your vehicles, make a date day out of it, drive to Newton, take part in it, listen to it.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't feel comfortable speaking. Maybe after that you go home, digest it the next day, call and speak with your commissioner. Because these are workshops. It's not one and done, right? Go to Dairy Queen and get ice
Honestly,
cream.
I don't think most people know what a workshop is.
So the workshop is when they go in and the tax assessor collector, Melissa Birch, plays a large role in this. She stands up and says, this is the projected based on this amount, and everybody's sharpening their pencils, putting a figure to it and trying to figure it out. But when you look at the budget, it's a stack of papers this thick, right?
Sure.
So it's some real scrutiny. We've lost a lot of revenue. Hey, what's going on down at the border? We used to have tickets, Precinct 4. My dad was commissioner. So you have Melissa, you have the tax assessor standing up there going, hey, on these values, you're looking at bringing in approximately this much, and the auditor's working with them. They do a great job. I watched them last year. I was very impressed with what they did. And then the commissioners look at it, and they're thumbing through this stack of papers. Now, what should happen is every elected official and or department head goes back, and they look at their department, and they say, this is what I would like to see. This is the best case scenario for my office.
Sure.
But this is what I have to run my office.
Right.
And then take that, this is what I would like to see, back to the court and say, this is what I like to see. And then we work through the workshop and we see where we come out against that tax levy, and then we go, that ain't good enough.
It seems like it would be very difficult for certain parts of the county, because the big accusation about small or rural counties is that there's this good old boy deal, and there's this nepotism off the charts. It would be very difficult if I was running some sort of branch of whatever was going on in the county, for me to sit there alongside those who work with me and not fight on their behalf on some level, especially if they're kin to me. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up is because, and that's not throwing stones at nobody, because we know everybody here is kin to everybody, right? We're all cousins, basically. But
well, let me address that. So you bring up a very valid point, but the county or the state has very strict nepotism laws.
Sure.
So when you get to those budget cycles, kinship sometimes is less stressful than friendship. So whether they're kin or they're not kin, they're working partners. They see each other every day.
Yeah, exactly. It may not be the family you was born with; it's the family you chose. Right?
You spend more time with your working family than you do with your natural family.
Exactly. So the thing is, you kind of get entwined in those relationships and friendships and things like that. And all I'm saying is, if that's the only representation that's showing up at these workshops, it's the public needs to be very mindful and aware of what's happening. Not that there's anything shady happening.
Exactly.
I would be worried about that too. If my job was in jeopardy, I would want to be on the first row to find out what's happening and why.
Absolutely. So I attended the meetings last year, and I didn't see any shady business going on.
Sure.
And I had me a packet, and I was following along trying to learn. But what I didn't see was enough discussion. I didn't see enough questions from the commission. We're probably gonna have long workshops because I got a lot of questions. People are gonna get tired of hearing me ask questions, and they already have, and that's okay. I'm asking them on behalf of the constituents of Precinct 4 and Newton County. But we're going to have to ask some hard questions.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to make some hard decisions. I mean, who knows where we're going to be before the end of 2023? Who knows what tomorrow holds? We know that there's been some communications that we're going to have to pay money back.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that leave us? Because when I give you those numbers in the beginning, that budget was pretty flat. It was like, don't spend anything above this and you'll break even. And then when you get another
$1 million tacked onto it, it kind of puts you in but once again, this kind of goes back to some of the grumblings, if you will, back during the election cycle, where the question was, are these grants actually being, or some of these grants in the past, were they actually being spent on what they were required to be spent on? And how is that going to come back to haunt us as a county? And so now we're sitting here looking down the double barrel shotgun of it, at the tune of $1 million. So it's, I'm glad the roads and bridges are safe, at least with the 15%, but it seems like there's a pretty stinking a few big hurdles here that we're fixing to jump.
So Judge Cochran has committed to have an investigation done.
Okay.
And you come from industry, and I think most people that's been in industry understands, if you have a process out there and someone falls asleep at the wheel on this process and the reactor wrecks and we spend $2 or $3 million on that. Well, we can beat that person up and we can say, you're at fault. You're going to be held accountable.
Right.
And if that's where we stop, it's going to happen again.
Sure.
Because we don't have the system in place, right? If we say, hey, that person fell asleep, but you know what? Somebody else is going to fall asleep. So we need to have key indicators in there when this thing is getting off track.
Right.
And we need to have an automated system that brings it back into a safe zone.
Yeah.
The county's no different. These grants, hey, I'm going to tell you right now, there is no one in Newton County that's a grant expert. We've proven that. So what we've got to do is we've got to have an investigation. We've got to drive that failure to a systems cause. There's going to be contributing factors. Jack, Jill, whoever didn't do their job. They failed to do this. They failed to do that. Okay. Now, if those root causes belong to a third party that was paid to manage those processes for us, there's some responsibility and accountability there, liability.
Right.
So we got to be careful what we say as an elected body, saying, "Oh, well, it's so and so's fault."
Right.
Let's do the investigation and let's let the investigation find.
Let's let it prove it out.
But one thing's for sure: we got to have a system in place that's robust enough that I can tell you right now, I can pull a piece of paper out of my office and tell you where we're at on the Harvey buyout program.
Right.
I don't have that. But we're going to have it soon. But I don't have it right now.
Right.
Now, I can call the person in that's doing that administration for us. They're a very professional group. I can get some feel-good factors, but we do not have that system. They may have it. They're going to have to show us they have it real soon. But we don't have it in the county to where we say, hey, here it is right here. Monthly, we're looking at this. If we see these indicators, we're going to drive it to this place. And
sure.
So when you go talk about grants, you talk about money spent, so when you get a chunk of money in and you're supposed to spend it over there and then, oh, well, that deed didn't, and I didn't go through, that didn't happen. Okay. What's next? Well,
but these grants aren't coming.
I know,
free of charge.
But when I say what's next, that money's still sitting there.
Oh yeah.
But if it didn't go over there,
and
it needs to go back there, right?
then once again, we still have a PO system that's associated with those grants. That's even problematic.
It is.
I mean, and so I think the conundrum for me is, and I know it's a big word for most of my
I was
listeners,
wondering what does that mean to the general audience?
The catch-22.
There you go.
In the long run. Is the fact that I believe Newton has a lot of untapped potential, number one. I believe this could very well be a new center of industry, okay? I believe that the people here, the overall populace, maybe not a few select groups and pockets, but the overall populace wants to see Newton grow and succeed, okay? Outside of their own grasps, if you will, all right? So I think the overwhelming general populace here in Newton County want to see the county grow. They want to see the county do good. Maybe they don't want to see it like Beaumont, but they at least want to see it healthy, where the county can pay its bills, everything's taken care of, no ifs, ands, or buts, or questions about integrity in leadership and things like that. So
let me add some credibility to that.
Okay.
So what we have in Precinct 4, we have a group of young people. They're young to me. They're in their early to mid 30s.
Okay.
And they formed a group. Mm-hmm. So we started doing some work around. They said, hey, we want to be involved. We got kids growing up in this community.
Right.
We want to be involved. We want to go find new projects. They actually went out. They formed a nonprofit.
Okay.
It's called Project Renewal.
Okay.
Young men and ladies right here in the community. They've started doing stuff. They're working with the school district on the property up here. It's exciting times down here in Deweyville. We're cleaning up some of these old flooded out abandoned buildings, and we have got energy from a young group of people. So I just want to say what you just said is absolutely. I see on the Newton page they got a restoration group,
Newton revitalization group.
Hey, and I know there was a meeting last week with this group that's the biomotor. The judge didn't let me in on no scoop, but man, he's been smiling.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that. And I think Newton has a new school.
Sure.
Deweyville's got a great school. Deweyville just cleaned out 22 acres of land down here in the center of Deweyville. Been flooded out since 16. School board, it broke all of our hearts to see it tore down, literally, because we started there and went all the way through. It broke our hearts, but it's opened up the door for the youth to have the football field and do different things. It's opened up so many opportunities. And I just wanted to to validate what you're saying is it's happening.
So, but the catch-22 is we're here. It's almost like you're sitting here between, a rock and a hard place. And I think the thing for me is to continue to, the buy-in can't stop for the growth and the value that's actually here in Newton County. It can't stop. And so we've got to figure out what these systems are. We've got to figure out what systems are responsible for some of the past decisions. And I'll be honest with you, my granddad had a great system. He would normally line all the kids up and beat one of them. Everybody else got the picture. Mm-hmm. So in these situations where these grants have been mishandled in the past, I think it's going to speak to the people as to whether or not there's any actual accountability beyond just the system. Because you know as well as I do. Nobody wants to point fingers at one individual, right? Nobody wants to, and I don't even know who that individual would be. What I'm interested to see is, what does the investigation show? If it shows that there's a colossal failure inside the system, which it could potentially be because there is no PO system. So that already speaks of infrastructure issues inside handling the finances of Newton County. So, but to me, I kind of go back to, okay, this is where we are. It's going to suck here for a few years until we get these things ironed out. But the upside for Newton County is insane.
Oh yeah.
It really is. I mean, the upside for this entire county. I mean, just with the biodiesel. I mean, I know we've got a lot of people don't get as big of a smile on their face when you say we've got a truck stop coming into town, this type of deal. But these are glimpses of hope. These are real glimpses of hope.
And they all have a spinoff. Look at what's going on. They're building a $9 to $12 billion project down here in Orange.
Sure.
Swings on who you ask, right? But huge investment.
Yeah.
That is going to engulf the radius of that, the growth of that is going to grow exponentially.
Yeah.
Property at the lake. These people are going to want to get away from this, living down here to go up there and get away. I mean, Newton County's not just going to grow on the south end, it's going to grow all the way through the county.
Sure.
It's going to bring in more tax dollars. Yeah. Now, let me just, when we say, you said it's going to suck for a few years, I want to challenge that to say, it's not going to suck.
Okay.
The commissioner's court and the judge and all the department heads and elected officials are going to have to gird up their loins and do what's right. We're going to have to stop overspending.
Right.
We're going to have to be true conservatives of the taxpayers' dollars. When that happens, things are going to improve overnight. Are there going to be less services? Probably.
Yeah.
But are the services are they going to be funded, and we're not going to be running around with gloom and doom and we're broke and what's going on?
Right.
We're going to know where we're at, and we're going to move forward together. And as we grow, we're going to pull some of those back in. Then we're going to start working on that humanitarian effort when we get more tax dollars. We're going to grow as a county, and we're going to grow as a county, but what we can't do is grow as a government while the county's not growing.
Right.
The government, the rate of growth in Newton County has been government out.
Right.
We got to grow county out.
Right.
And then hold the government where it's at, and then allow the government to catch up.
So that basically is kind of tying into a life decision that I'm dealing with right now, because yes, the benefit of a diet over the next 6 months is going to be great for me in 6 months, but the process is going to mean that I'm going to have to put down the pizza and the beer and the everything else.
Yeah.
And so, in essence, you know, I mean, that's what has always been kind of funny to me. You know, people talking about they didn't have money, but they had plenty of beer and cigarettes to drink and smoke. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, you're basically saying, in a way, you're saying that we're going to kind of have to back off some of the throttle and really get this thing dialed in. So, is there any final thing that you want to throw out here to the people?
Yeah. So, I mean, we've had a lot of good discussion, and quite honestly, sometimes when I have these types of visits with folks, and listen, what we've done here, I'm going to say 12 different times in the community.
Okay.
And I would just say, reach out to your elected officials. It doesn't have to be a commissioner. If you're more comfortable talking with the JP up here, Dana Ashmore, go visit with Dana.
Right.
If you're more comfortable talking with Melissa Burks, go visit with Melissa.
Mm-hmm.
Come visit with me. We can get comfortable. I mean, I'm a public servant, but that should go all the way through the county. We don't have to we are too smart to have a bunch of unanswered questions.
Right.
We can't answer the questions that the investigation will unfold. But what we can do is answer them, and we can answer the questions of how do the appraisals work?
Right.
How does a protest system work? 30 days from the time you get your appraisal, you got 30 days to protest. I want to make sure that's clear for people, because
Sure.
people have been asking me.
Absolutely.
Don't be scared to go protest. I met with Margie Herring this morning. She's welcomed that.
Yeah.
You know, but she also has to be within 5% of that audit that's coming up,
Right.
or the money comes away from the school district. Don't be scared. Get involved, and go to the workshops.
Get your butt to the workshops.
Be scared not to go.
There you go. Very good. Leonard Powell, man, I appreciate you taking time with me and sitting down and answering some of these thoughts that kind of leading us out a little bit on some of these ideas with the appraisals and taxes and things like that. So hopefully we can kind of get this thing dialed in.
Do you want help set up a PO system?
I definitely can tell you how.
Yeah.
You know, I can definitely work. I can work in some level of capacity. I do know this. I know if there is no PO system, you're broke before you even get to the end of the month. This is how people go broke. If you have no way, it's willy-nilly business is what it is. And one of the things I can say about, you made a statement, everybody has a PO system. No, the broke ones and the out of business people didn't, And so, there's a lot of business that is done out here without PO systems. But you can't run a county like that. You can't run a successful business like that. I mean, I work with a company right now, $2 million in revenue a year, have a PO system. Gotta have it. Because whenever you go and sit down with those auditors at the end of the year, or God forbid the IRS comes in, it's a different conversation whenever you don't have some sort of system like that kind of steering the ship, if you will. So once again, I appreciate you taking time with me, man. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're out there and you are liking this type of content, I would encourage you, if you're in Newton County, get your rear down to the workshops. Go find out where they're at, find out when they're going to be, and go ahead and get down there so you can find out how this money is being spent. At a very, very basic level, your presence would not just be appreciated, but it might be very important to the future of what we're doing here in Newton County. Just that, you being present and available to listen and chime in. If you're out there and you like Not On The Payroll, go like, share, and subscribe. We appreciate you. We appreciate everybody throughout the region doing good work. We love you and hope you guys have a good week.